My background was in the Air Force Reserves for a number of years while going to grad school and then while working. Trained as an engineer originally, went back to business school to get into the renewable energy field, and found my first job at SunEdison. Ended up working for SunEdison, which is a solar energy financing and development company. Worked with them for 5 years. And then about a year and a half ago, one of the SunEdison co-founders who had left approached me about a new opportunity. And the opportunity was to work on energy financing for batteries. The solar industry is, as you can imagine, we only generate sun electricity during the day when the sun is out, and so at nighttime, solar energy has to be supplemented with coal, natural gas, whatever other sources. So solar energy can only grow to a certain proportion of grid power without batteries being an integral part. And historically, batteries have just been too expensive. The economics haven't worked out, and this friend has been in the solar industry for about 20 years, and I was new, but always knowing that batteries someday would be a key bridge towards solar being a major part of the grid. And he's been following it even longer, and we started talking and running the numbers and saying, could this be the time? Could this be the time to start investing in batteries to allow solar energy to become a much larger portion of
I'm
energy?
confused.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about not just solar generation that generates direct power, you're talking about solar generation that goes into battery banks?
Well, installing batteries, so that's a great question, because a lot of people, when they think about pairing batteries with solar, think that you need to put in enough batteries to store the energy so that you're running the grid 24/7 off of the solar. That doesn't work out yet. But what we started to do is we found that there are other opportunities for batteries on the grid. There are opportunities where by having a small battery tied to the solar system, solar energy, a cloud comes over and it drops
Right.
off, cloud goes away, it pops back up. If you can have a small battery, you can give a nice generation profile. By doing that, you make it a lot easier on the utility to accept more solar onto the grid. So step one, it's not the whole battle, but it's or it's not the whole war, but it's the first battle, right? It's just make solar more palatable to the grid. So you put a small amount of batteries, and what we found is that you can make the economics work for putting small batteries co-located with solar systems. It's still expensive though. So to your point of financing, and not just wanting to make sure I don't talk too long about the whole business model, but talk about the key part. One of the things that SunEdison did for solar energy that helped solar energy grow quickly was to provide financing. SunEdison created a model where people buy solar electricity, they don't buy the solar system. SunEdison would install the system and finance it and just sell the energy. And so we said,
Individual homes or commercial institutions?
well, SunEdison started with commercial systems, but now there are a lot of companies that do it for individual homes as well.
Can I ask a really stupid question connected to Bob's? So if you're talking about a company that is, do they harvest sun energy and transmit it? So they must be keeping it somewhere.
No, right now the way it works is when a company like SunEdison develops a solar project, they build it on the roof of a customer, and the electricity, when it's generated, offsets the customer's load. So instead of buying all of your electricity from the utility, you're buying, during the middle of the day, you're only buying 50% of your electricity from the utility. And so you're getting power from both sources. And if you even produce too much, it actually exports back onto the grid. But then at night, all of your power is coming from the utility.
There is no way to store it.
There currently is no economically feasible way to store it. Yes, except batteries, which you could put on, but it just hasn't made sense. And now that's where we're seeing the opportunity that you can start to make the numbers pencil with a small battery. So not enough to keep that system up and running, to power it up during the day and then run all day long, but just enough to keep that the energy profile to the utility stable, because the utility still is the gatekeeper. To put a system on your roof, the utility has to give you permission. They have to say, okay, check the box, you can do that. And right now, they only allow about if the consumption of a neighborhood is a certain amount, they only allow solar systems that will produce about 10 to 15% of the total energy for that neighborhood. And that's just because when the clouds go over, the electricity rushing, coming out from the solar system and then rushing back in from the grid causes stability issues overall on the grid. So by just having a battery there to smooth it out, you can allow more solar. You can go from the 10 to 15% limit to 25, 30, potentially a much higher limit over time. But it also gives you a foothold. Once you've got that foothold, you then make the batteries bigger and bigger. So over time, you can store more and more energy in the batteries as well, and then you can start to get away from some of the central generation and do the distributed generation with solar.
So what are you doing in this?
Financing. So that's what I did at SunEdison. At SunEdison, I came in as it was a new startup, and I created some of the financial models for pricing out how do you make the cost of solar energy work for the businesses. And so I did that for about 5 years, running the numbers, figuring out how to bring in financing to get an investor to buy the system and sell the energy back to the host. And now that's what we're trying to do for the batteries. So the same structures, financial structures we created for investing in PV systems, we now want to do for the batteries. So that was the vision. Of course, to get there, I also have to fund the company. So to Amanda's point, there are two aspects of the funding that we're out there doing. One, we're doing just the funding to get people, venture capitalists, angel investors, folks to invest in us as a company, to allow us to start to develop the business, as well as we're looking for project investors. And these project investors are the same folks we talked to at SunEdison, people who buy, in that case, a PV system. In our case, they'll buy the battery, and they'll take payment for the battery as it provides services. So basically, we structure agreements with the utilities and with the host customers so that if the host is using backup or if the utility is using the battery to smooth out the generation profile, they pay the investor for use of that battery, and the investor gets their overall return. So we've been at it for about 1.5 years. It's exciting. We're just starting to get some traction on the corporate investor side. We've got a few early commitments on the project side. So things are kind of meshing up just in time, just kind of getting enough cash in to keep the business moving forward. But it's been a good experience, and for me, I'd seen a startup, I'd been in it, but I really didn't help to create it. So now being up on the front end of things, cash is king is a cliched expression, but it sure is true when you're trying to,
So you got your own company with a couple of partners and a couple of employees or something like that.
Right.
And you got your own initial cash on MasterCard or American Express or whatever.
All the above.
And you're trying to get somebody to invest in your company,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the same time get investors for these actual projects.
Right. So a lot of what honestly, the founders, we're taking little to no salary right now. So most of our money is trying to put purchase orders down on the equipment, develop the projects, and identify an investor. So they'll buy the project from us. We'll make some money on the margin between what we paid for the equipment and what they pay for the project, the battery project, and that'll pump more money into the company. We also, of course, are trying to seek out, funding into the company just so that we can get that working capital to buy the equipment, as well as to pay ourselves a salary and for the various R&D efforts and whatnot.
Interesting.
So an investor who would many investors invest in one project, or would one investor invest in one project?
Typically one investor per project. What we would like to do in the long term is what we did at SunEdison, where you identify an investor who says, I'll allocate $20 million for, that would fund somewhere in the order of 20 to 100 projects, depending on the size of the project. So by doing that, we can create a standard document, standard contract, so that we simply say, okay, here's another project, here's the contract. It's kind of the same way mortgages work, right? Investors say, I'll fund this many $100 million worth of mortgages. The contract doesn't really change. You just say, here's the location, here's how the rate of return, total spend. So initially, every project is a one-off deal. They'll all be negotiated individually. But long term, we'd really like to create that sort of a master facility with a standard document.